Kick it off.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, welcome back to another episode of Road Noise. Hey, I'm glad you're hanging out with Dad and I, and we're here ready to take another put a few more miles on as we head down the road. Here are some stories that Dad's captured over the last 50 years, and we are in, well into season six now, three, four, five episodes, something like that, and um, yeah, each of these episodes has been kind of a little bit of surprise for me because most of these stories I haven't heard yet. So I'm looking forward to hearing where we're going tonight, Dad.
All right. Well, in the written version, this was number 291. I have no idea um, how the numbering system got started, but the title on this one was Time to Bend a Little. And it goes like this. He said we're going to put some miles on. Well, we're not going to put a whole lot of miles on today because we're headed to a church that's relatively close to our office building. Little tiny church that we'd never been to before, and we've got the bus and all of our crew and and all of our equipment. And we're to do Sunday school at this church. And we get there early in the morning, and there's not a car in the parking lot anywhere. So my first thought was, oh, great. Here we are. We're going to have to sit here until someone shows up, and they know what time we're supposed to be here because we know how long it's going to take to set up, and the doors are probably locked, and so we're just going to have to sit here and wait until we can get in, and then it's going to be a rush to get things set up in time. Anyway, so that's what's going through my mind, but you don't know that the doors are locked until you try them. And so I go to the front door of the church, and lo and behold, it is unlocked. And I was right on one of the things. There's nobody here, nobody at all, but the church is not locked, so that's a good thing. Hey, we'll just go on in and set up, and we'll be ready. So as I walk into the church, I'm staring at the auditorium, and I'm thinking, okay, we're not going to be set up here because there's not enough room on the platform. And they've got this modesty rail that goes across the whole front. And so, yeah, we're not setting up here. And so I head to the basement. And when I get down there, it was very obvious that this is where they intended us to be. Because here's a piece of paper taped to a water pipe hanging down from the ceiling. And it says, "Welcome, puppet prospectors. Set the stage up here." And there's an arrow pointing straight down. Well, I see the note, and yeah, that's pretty obvious. That's where they want us to set up. But believe me, it is not going to happen here. This is what I'm going to refer to as a Michigan basement. They only use the basement for Sunday school classes for the kids because an adult couldn't stand up down there.
Yep.
I mean, this water pipe that they had this notes taped to, you would hit your head on. And so I would imagine that an adult teacher has to sit down in order to teach classes down there. That's just my guess. I don't know. But in either case, I'm saying even if we could set the stage up down here, there wouldn't be any room for any kids. I mean, this is a small basement and low ceiling, so no, we're not going to be setting up here. Well, remember, there's no one else around, and so there's nobody to ask, you know, what are we going to do? And so I realized that it's going to be me. I'm going to have to make a decision here, right, wrong, or otherwise. We've got to get something rolling. And so I go back upstairs and I look at the platform again, and I'm thinking, all right, it's wide enough, but it's not deep enough because of this modesty rail. But the way the stage was constructed, our puppet stage, we could have the two wings on the right and left stick over that modesty rail. Okay, it'd be hanging out in midair, but we could do that. And like I said, there really weren't any other options. And so I went up back out to the bus and told everybody, hey, This is going to be a challenge, but we're going to be setting up in the main auditorium. We're going to have the stage hang over that modesty rail, and kind of gave everybody a heads up. And we start carrying everything in and getting set up. Well, like I said, we were there for Sunday school, and we were supposedly only going to be doing this program for the kids. Well, here we are setting up in the main auditorium. Well, we were just about finished setting up when I realized we're not the only ones invited to be here today.
Right.
Because I see a van pull in, and at first I'm thinking, oh, it's probably the pastor or somebody from the church. And a young man walks in, comes into the auditorium. He sees our puppet stage there, and his jaw drops. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I says, "Well, I'm sorry, you weren't here, or wasn't anybody here when we got here to ask. And as you can see, we're setting up for a puppet stage." And that's when he told me that he's with the band. And they were there to do the morning service. But they came early because they got to get all their equipment set up and do sound check and everything before the morning service time. So I said, tell you what, let me show you something. So I take this young guy down to the basement, and I show him the sign that's hanging on the water pipe that says, "Welcome, puppet prospectors, set your stage up here." Well, when he saw that sign, he realized that we had a good reason to be setting up in the auditorium, because he just saw the puppet stage and he's convinced, yeah, it would not have fit in that basement. Okay, so now what are we going to do? We got a puppet stage filling up the entire front of the auditorium, and we've got a band that has showed up, and with all their instruments and everything, and they want to do the morning service. So we talked about it briefly, and I told him, I says, well, we're going to have to, both of us going to have to compromise here. This is not an ideal situation for for either one of us, and so we're just going to have to make the best of it. And that's why I entitled this "Time to Bend a Little." We're both going to have to bend. This is not ideal for either one of us, and so how are we going to make this work? Well, there was a little bit of room on both sides of our puppet stage where it didn't quite touch the wall, and so I suggested, hey, part of the people in the band could stand on this side of the stage, and part could stand on the other side, and I don't know what we're going to do for a sound system, but our sound system is already set up. And by this time in our ministry, we had a pretty decent sound system. And so I suggested, why don't we plug your mics into our soundboard, and we'll just use ours. You won't have to set your sound up at all, except for the amps for your guitars. And as far as your cases, we can take all the guitar cases and so forth, and we can put those back behind the puppet stage. There's not a lot of room back here, because we got all our stuff, but we can kind of hide those cases and so forth, get those out of your way. And then I came up with another idea. I said, I guess if you wanted, you could stand inside the puppet stage. We could open up the curtains. I could turn the lights on you, and people would be able to see your head. They wouldn't be able to see your from the waist down or anything. But well, like I said, that idea didn't fly very well, and he agreed that yeah, standing out in front of the stage and off to both sides would probably be the best. And knowing that there wasn't going to be any time for us to tear down after Sunday school and for them to get everything set up, we're just going to have to wing it. Well, he went out and told the rest of the band what the situation was, and they all carry their instruments and all in, and we plugged their mics and everything into our sound system, did a sound check, and it sounded like everything was going to be fine. And then people started to show up. And of course, here's the adult Sunday school teacher, and he's like, Well, where's my class going to meet? We normally meet upstairs here. Well, sorry, sir, but this is where we're going to be doing the puppet program. Oh, and adults were showing up. There was adults that showed up and just brought their kids. They were just going to drop the kids off because they heard that this puppet team was going to be there. Oh, and then you had people showing up because they heard that the band was going to be there. Well, to make a short story long, that church was packed. There was literally standing room only by the time Sunday school got started. And it was really, it turned out to be an amazing day. Needless to say, everybody stayed there for the puppet program. And like I said, there wasn't much time in between. And so pretty much everybody stayed for the concert with this band afterwards. And so between the two of us, I'm guessing that all these years later, that band is still talking about the time that they showed up at this little tiny church and there was a puppet stage on the platform where they expected to perform. So, all that to say this, you know, there are things in this life that do not always go the way that we plan. And sometimes we might have to bend a little bit. We might have to be flexible. We might find out that the plans that we had aren't going to work whatsoever. But when we get in those situations, my guess is that God has a plan and He's going to share that with us. And there's going to be a way to make it happen. And so that's our story for today. Bend a little bit. Don't be so set that everything has to go just your way because this is life. And there's a good chance it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that that actually connects really well with the story you shared with us last week. And so if you haven't caught that one, I encourage you to go back an episode and listen to that one. And this will connect well with that and it'll kind of close the loop. So yeah, that feels like a good place to park it. And look forward to picking this up next week.
Sounds good to me.